Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed English. This video is part of a series to help candidates for the B2 First and First for Schools exams prepare for their speaking, and we're looking at the assessment for speaking. In this video, we're going to be talking about pronunciation. In previous videos, we looked at Band 3 first and then we looked at Band 5. But this time I'm going to put everything together to talk about the different areas of pronunciation you need to pay attention to, because there's only one or two words that are different between Band 3 for a pass and Band 5 at the top. And those little words are the ones we need to pay attention to. So the first description in pronunciation is that the candidate for Band 3 and for Band 5, it's the same. The first description is that the candidate is intelligible. In other words, generally speaking, the examiners can understand what you say. Your partner can understand what you say. I've never met a student who was taking a B2 exam who was not intelligible. A couple were close. You had to really listen carefully because the way that they spoke was so much connected with their mother tongue. There was so much kind of interference, as we say, that it was hard to follow them sometimes, but generally that should be fine. But now it gets more interesting. Next, we're going to talk about intonation. And for intonation, we're talking about, for example, the difference between a statement like, oh, it's raining outside, and a question, oh, is it raining outside? For those two different forms of communication, we needed to use different intonation. And to get a Band 3, your intonation must generally be appropriate. And for Band 5, your intonation must be appropriate. So it must be right for the context. So how do you practice intonation? Well, one way of doing it would be to listen to people speaking, get a friend to read you a short sentence from a book, and they would say it the certain way depending on the punctuation in the book, and you write down what they said with that punctuation. So if it was a question, put a question mark at the end. Then you can check the original book to see if the way that you'd written it was correct from the way they'd said it. You can do the same for yourself. You can ask your friend to choose a piece of text, you read it to your friend, and they have to write or transcribe what you've said with the right punctuation. And that way you're testing if your basic intonation is correct. There are other things that you can do beyond that, which would be, for example, and this works better with a teacher who can give you guidance, you can use mood verbs or mood pictures. So like a puzzled expression. This would lead to, is it raining outside? Which is quite different intonation again. Scared. It's raining outside. See, the intonation is different in each case. The words themselves are still pronounced the way that these words should be pronounced, but across the sentence, the intonation changes. The next part for a Band 3 says that sentence and word stress is generally accurately placed. And for Band 5, it says sentence and word stress is accurately placed. So we just get rid of the word generally. It needs to be more accurate. So what is this? Well, let's talk about word stress first. Now, when I've got my, I suppose this is an example. This is a remote control, and just here we've got this button here. Now, the question is, how do we pronounce this? You want to make a copy of something, do you record it or do you record it? Well, when it's a verb, we put the stress at the end of the word, so it's record. But if we had, for example, a big vinyl LP, I might talk about that being a record. So the stress is at the start. And there are a lot of words in English with two syllables like that, where the word stress changes between the noun and the verb. But we also have other things. For example, I like to take photographs. Photographs. First syllable stress for the noun. What does that make me? Well, I'm an amateur photographer. So the stress on the word changes because we've added something at the end of the word, from photograph to photographer. If I say I'm a photographer, it sounds a little bit unusual because that's not the expected word stress placement. And then the same sort of thing happens for sentence stress. If I say I want to go on holiday, that would make sense. But if I say I want to go on holiday, that would sound a bit strange. Why am I stressing the word on? Sometimes you want to stress a particular word in the sentence, and that's great. Maybe it's not my friends, they don't want to go on holiday. I want to go on holiday. Maybe I'm very strong in it. I want to go on holiday. Maybe I don't want to go to work. So maybe I say I want to go on holiday. But that's not true of every word in that sentence. I want to go on holiday. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? A sentence stress like that, or word stress in the sentence? It doesn't really make sense, does it? So this is what we're talking about, placing the stress in the right way. And again, practice is very important. Practice reading text, recording yourself and seeing if it matches. One thing that you can do that would actually be quite interesting, see how it works, would be to use a speech-to-text program. Take a short piece of text, read it to the computer and see if the computer can generate the same text. That will help with your general pronunciation, but also it will help to an extent with things like sentence and word stress. And then the last area that they look at for pronunciation, they say that individual sounds are generally articulated clearly. So that's for a 3. And individual sounds are articulated clearly. And that's for a 5. So we go from generally, again, to not generally, just all the time. So individual sounds. To give you a guide here, take a look at the English phonetic chart. The phonetic chart shows all the phonemes or unit sounds that exist in English. For example, the most famous one, the most difficult for people to get if they're not English, is the th sound. Did you know there are 2 phonemes for this th sound? You have the voiced and unvoiced. So there's a difference between saying thumb, where you have to carry the sound out, and when the sound is already produced and all you're doing is putting your tongue on your teeth here. For example, please meet my mother. So that's a different phoneme. But if you say meet my mother, or here's my thumb, that is not very good articulation of those individual sounds. It's not the end of the world, because usually from the context the person listening will know that you're talking about your thumb and your mother. So it's not a big problem. But if you want clear articulation, then that can be quite important. There are words where it's even more important, however. For example, do you like the bird on my face? Sorry, what's that? A bird on your face? Oh, beard. So I've chosen the wrong sound again. I went with an sound instead of an e sound. So that would be the articulation of individual sounds. If you find there are words that you struggle with, practice those. And there are words in every language. When you go from, for example, Polish to English, you'll see that there are words that are more difficult for people to talk about. So, for example, over there in the distance, we have the mountains. A lot of Polish students struggle to say that. They say mountains. So that's actually 2 mistakes, because it's not A at the end, it's N. So mountains. Find the words that you struggle with and practice those the most. Okay, so that gives us an idea then of what's required for good pronunciation grades, going through from a 3 for a pass all the way to the top. And that just leaves one more video for us to go through, where we look at interactive communication and what that means. So see you next time.